This video is about serious incidents and how our trainees can deal with and cope with serious incidents.
Yeah, this is a very important video actually, this one. This applies to all, not just people returning to work, because this is a new part of the workplace. It can feel very adversarial for some of the trainees. So what I'm hoping is that this video, and I'm sure that will be brought out by the trainee as well, how we can actually make things better and actually make it reveal what needs to change in a hospital, but not feel quite so bad for a trainee. And always they're so conscientious, which is the problem. Yes. But it'll help them move through that process better.
Great.
So Morwenna, we're here to have a conversation about serious incidents. We've had quite a few trainees come to us saying that they're involved in serious incidents and they don't really understand the process, but also how to access help and support. So I thought it would be a good starting point to have a chat about it. Serious incidents are something that aren't going to go away and they will affect you throughout your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some recent statistics saying about 90% of trainees at some point just during training will be involved in a serious incident and therefore will have to cope with everything that involves, you know, that process. And I think for lots that's a very daunting and very challenging process.
So what is the process?
The first thing is to think of it as a positive process, but also one that is quite high level. And I think it's really important to say that. The senior leaders, the chief exec, the executive board all get very involved with serious incidents. So they get reported locally and then onto national systems so that they can have the resources and the input to look into all the details and all the parts of cases to try and look for areas for learning and look for any improvement.
So what advice would you give to a trainee involved?
So I think the first thing is to feel empowered with some knowledge about the process. I think that what we want to be able to do is to give some really good signposting to large documents that are available through NHS England and a really clear flow chart about the process, because it's all very well talking about it, but what you want to know is at the time, right, what is going to happen now? And there are some very clear timelines and there are some very clear objectives set out. I think that the fundamental thing is to ask for support from trainees going through this. I think it's inherently incredibly stressful. It feels like you're being very scrutinised. It's very challenging to be asked to write a report, so that will be part of it. And I think the important thing is to get help from the team involved, but get help from your supervisor, get help from mentors about writing reports, about how you're feeling about the whole process, and never to feel like you're going about it alone. I think there's sometimes a big time delay. You know, what do you do then? Where do you get that support from?
And just feel, I think, acknowledging that this is going to be a stressful time, but that's normal.
Absolutely.
And everyone feels like that, whether you are an F1 or a consultant, we will all feel that stress because, as you said, we feel that we're being scrutinised and we shouldn't take it personally. I think it's easier said than done though.
Very much so, but that's where you can get the support. And I think it's not about, gosh, I've done something wrong. It's about something happened with the process. Is there anything we could have done to change the outcome? Maybe not, but actually it's about investing that energy with everyone involved to look at viewpoints, events and everything. And it's about being open and collaborative about looking into it. So the stress is never going to go away, but actually if you understand the process, the timings, the people involved, then you don't have to get stressed if the chief exec emails you about an SI, because actually they need to know about it. They need to be involved in the process and, you know, help the team together when they're dealing with something nationally as well.
And I think the other stressful aspect for trainees is that they have to declare this as part of their annual ARCP. And that can be daunting for them.
Absolutely. Even the word, isn't it? Declare all SIs at, you know, at ARCP sounds like you're having to put a really, you know, negative take on an ARCP, which should be a really positive reflection of all the amazing things you've achieved that year. And then you think, oh God, I've got to put a complaint, and they're even in the same box, I think, complaints and SIs, and you just think, no, that shouldn't be the way you think about it. This should be, look, I've been through this process, it was hard, but I learned a lot from it. And I think the people who are leading the SI process should be really making sure that everybody involved gets made aware of the outcomes and actually is aware of the learning outcomes or anything that could have been changed.
And actually for the trainee to have that opportunity to just talk through go through the report and actually speak to someone about it, it gives them that final closure.
Absolutely. And if that, sometimes that takes a while. If you look at the timings, that can be if some of the more complex ones can take a long time. So I think if you haven't heard, chase it, say, what happened with that one? I've been declaring it, talking about it at ARCP, reflecting. So, trying to get that closure and those outcomes is important.
So I'm going to now have a chat with Iona, who is one of our trainees, and talk about her experience and involvement in a serious incident. Iona, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today.
No problem.
I know that you were involved in a serious incident. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about the experience and how it made you feel?
Sure. So it was 2 months into my first SD1 job. So I was working on neonates as an SHO. I was first to attend a delivery, and unfortunately it resulted in a neonatal death. So I received an email about 2 weeks later being informed that I was therefore going to be involved in a serious incident. So when I first received the email, I was quite alarmed. I immediately thought I'd done something wrong, having been the first one at the delivery. At that point told that actually all term babies who have an unexpected death automatically get classified as a serious incident.
So were you given any guidance or support as to what to do next after you'd received the email?
I received the email and didn't really know what to do. I was told that I needed to write this report, but I had no idea what to say. I knew that I wanted to do what was best for the family and also to protect myself, but I had no idea where to start. I did try and speak to the consultant who led the case, but I later found out that actually the consultant who've led the case aren't allowed to give you advice. They have to remain quite separated and unbiased because they have to write their own report. And from that point on, I think because I hadn't received much from him, I actually just then shut myself away and I thought, okay, I just need to get on with this on my own.
And how were you feeling whilst you were doing this?
I kept feeling quite upset because I was dealing with the emotional aspects of the case and then also having to go through this whole process again and then put it on paper. I think I constantly questioned my actions because I kept convincing myself that I'd done something wrong, and that's why I was being asked to do all of this. And I just felt very stressed at trying to do the best thing and trying to write the report the best way I could, but without really knowing what I was doing. Looking
Back, would you have done things differently?
Definitely. I think I would have tried to find other people to talk to. My supervisor actually didn't find out about the case until about 6 months after it happened. And I think if I had approached her in the first instance and said, look, I'm really upset by this, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, can I have some sort of guidance into how I'm supposed to deal with this, how I'm supposed to write the report? I think if I had been more proactive about trying to seek out that support, I think the whole thing would have gone a lot smoother for me.
And how about the end of the serious investigation? Did you get a copy of that report?
I got an email copy of the report. Again, it was no warning, just popped up in my email inbox. And I read through the report and I was constantly trying to see if there was anything I'd done wrong. Again, the alarm just raised up again for me. I didn't talk to anyone about the reports, and I think that would have been really helpful to kind of talk through it again. I guess to have a debrief about the case and what happened and talk through the meeting and why they came to the conclusions they did would have been really helpful. I knew in my heart of hearts I hadn't done anything wrong, but it was just the automatic reaction that you constantly question yourself when you're involved in something like that. You go through everything over and over again, and I think that's very hard to do.
So were you able to move on, or did that affect your work?
I think it took me a long time to move on from it. I did have trouble sleeping for a while and trouble acknowledging the case and talking about it. It actually wasn't until the end of the year, when you have to obviously raise it at your ARCP and write a reflection, that I thought, actually this is really good that I'm reflecting on this now. Having tried to push it out of my mind for so long, it was actually really good to sit down and put it on paper and think, okay, this is what happened, this is how I'm feeling about it, and this is what I've learned from it.
So Iona, would you have any advice to give to a trainee who is going through a serious incident?
Absolutely. I think the main thing is talking about it. You know, whether you find that talking to a more professional body like your supervisor or one of your consultants more helpful, or whether you talk to your family or your friends at home, whatever you find beneficial, talking through it. Secondly, trying to get some support and advice on how you go about writing the report, and reflection is really important. You know, I didn't reflect until a good year after, and I didn't realise how beneficial that was for me until I sat down and did it.
Thank you, Iona.
No problem.
So that was very powerful, hearing from Iona and her experience.
What a story though to go through, my goodness. I mean, I think a lot of people actually go through things very, very like that, and she brought out the feeling of kind of being alone in it as well. And I think probably the take-home message for me is make sure that you actually talk to people, make sure you get support, make sure that when you're writing these reports, you know, you get them somebody who's got a bit more experience and perhaps a longer view to help you with that as well.